I know, they squeezed me on today.
Well, I wanted to make sure you were
Thank
able
you.
to be seen. So,
I don't know, I still like the sign. I thought that was clever.
I left it at home, but I didn't.
I thought it was clever.
It might make an appearance again.
yeah.
Just drive down the
Usually
street.
I would present this to our Parks and Rec department, but not here. So.
City attorney can accept on behalf of Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah. Don't think that I'm trying to be antisocial.
No, I understand. People move away from me all the time before the coronavirus.
Did you make that?
No.
Nice.
What?
Very nice. All right. Well, it's 7 p.m. Central Time in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Please rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, I wanted to formally welcome Tori Roberts to our dais back again
Thank
after a
you.
2-meeting absence. I want to thank our staff for helping to accommodate that. Thank you very much, Sharon, and appreciate that. We want to see your smiling face, so very important for us. All right, well, we have a presentation, and since we don't, obviously we're social distancing here, and we don't have all of our staff in the room, I'm going to be doing a proclamation on Earth Day in the city of Gardner. We've done a lot of work. Obviously, we have Tree City USA designation through the National Arbor Day Foundation, so our environmental stewardship in this community is extremely prized, and we're very proud of what we've done within our community to be able to foster that. So, whereas April 22nd, 2020 marks the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and whereas the first Earth Day was proclaimed in order to foster public awareness on the need to protect the environment and conserve resources, and whereas Earth Day was created to allow us to reflect on the health of our planet and the importance of our environmental stewardship, safeguarding our planet and its natural resources to ensure that we and future generations will have a clean, healthy world in which to live, work, and recreate. And whereas Earth Day is celebrated annually to celebrate the beauty of our planet, recommit to actions to promote a healthy environment, and to maintain a peaceful, just, and sustainable world. And whereas Earth Day is an opportunity to renew America's commitment to preserving and protecting the state of our environment through community service and responsible stewardship, now therefore be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2020 as Earth Day in the City of Gardner, Kansas, and urge all citizens to celebrate and commit to protect and enhance the long-term health and the national environment and community. Typically, we do a cleanup day on Earth Day. This year, obviously, with COVID-19 and the stay-at-home circumstances, we will be postponing that.
Clean up your yard.
Yes, clean up where you're at. But we are looking forward to potentially rescheduling the trail cleanup for later on this year once we're back something too close to a semblance of normal. So I will give that to our Parks and Rec department when I see them. Next presentation is the South Wastewater Treatment Plant presentation. Gans Garcia has a PowerPoint for us. Good evening, Gans.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Well, probably for over the past couple of years, I've been talking about that we need a wastewater treatment facility south. So this PowerPoint presentation is trying to summarize and show that the need is can be justifiable. So a quick background or history. Kill Creek wastewater treatment facility was built in 2002 with a design capacity of 2.5 million gallon a day. It can peak to 7.5 and sometimes, at times, it's got been able to get as much as 9. So we have the capacity. The graph below shows the daily average influent. That's all the wastewater is collected from the city and goes to Kill Creek. And you will see the different trend from 2015 to 2019. It is good to know that in 2018, we have very dry summer or dry year, and that's why you can see the flows going to Kill Creek pretty low. Last year was the opposite. We had a lot of rain and snow, so we had a lot more influence. Then the wastewater master plan was updated in 2017. We hired HDR, who did the previous master plan, and they identified 17 projects for collection and transfer of future wastewater to Kill Creek. You can see on the table projects from 2020 to 2028 with a total amount of $31.54 million. In addition to that, there was a Kill Creek expansion with a cost of 16.8, and it was proposed or scheduled for 2032. The master plan also provided a alternative to locate a new wastewater treatment facility south of I-35 on 191st or 199th Street. But the capacity was 750,000 gallons per day. And you show the graph showed the two locations that we were looking back in 2017. The table shown has the cost comparison based on the master plan for the sending all the flow to Kill Creek, then the alternative 1 for the south wastewater plant, and then alternative 2. If you look at the bottom, to send all the waste to Kill Creek, which will include a expansion of the existing facility and put in additional sewer lines to provide additional capacity, was $32.5 million. The alternative 1, which was put in a plant next to the South Lift Station, was $30.1 million. And the second alternative, which was put in the plant on 199th, was $30.9 million. This just as a reference because the numbers have changed. Then in 2009, Johnson County Wastewater finalized a Bull Creek watershed study. They look at the entire watershed south of I-35, and they included Edgerton, Gardner, New Century, Spring Hill, and the area covered over 50,000 acres. The purpose of the study was to provide guidance for the development of the collection system and treatment. And they had a plan layout for 2010 all the way to 2030. We met with them back in January this year, and they told us about this study, and they said that they didn't have enough capacity for us right now, and they were not going to implement what was found on the study because it was very costly, serving 50,000 acres. So on the graph on the drawing shows the area that was studied by Johnson County Waste, and it shows Edgerton, Gardner, Spring Hill, and Johnson County. As you can see, it's a pretty vast area. Annexations. Last year, 2019, the city annexed the 261 acres for the Prairie Trace project, also known as GRADA, and the 800 acres along 199th Street. Now there is also a possibility of annexing another 5,000 acres between 2 to 5 years. The graph or the drawing below shows the current lands are annexed to the city. And you can see the annexations along 199th and also the GRADA property. By state and federal law, any new or expanded discharges from the Natural Pollutant Discharge Emulation System, NPDES, facilities may have to do a anti-degradation study. So we went ahead, retained HDR to do the study so that we can provide this to KDHE. We originally approached them and proposed putting a package plant, and they were not too open to that idea. But they told us that we should look at sending the waste to Edgerton, send it back to Kill Creek, see if there's any capacity at Johnson County. So that's what the study is looking at. So they proposed 5 alternatives: the New South wastewater treatment plant, then pump the flows to Kill Creek, pump the flows to Johnson County waste water, then pump the flows to Edgerton, to Big Bull Creek, and the other was a non-degrading alternative. This slide shows the alternative we consider for Greta. You had the alternative one, which is pumping the wastewater to the East Lift Station. And the other alternative that we looked or considered was putting a gravity main along Cedar Niles and then pump it to the South Lift Station. The second alternative looks good for the future. However, it will be very hard to implement that in the period that that is allowed, or we have with Greta to provide the service. So that alternative is out of the question. It will take too long. So right now we're applying alternative 1 for Greta. So alternative 1, New South wastewater treatment plant, is based on a 2.5 million gallon day plant. The ultimate will be 5 millions. It will require using level of technology, and it will have 5 stages of the nitrification filters. This is required to lower our nutrient levels. And one of the good part of this alternative that we may be able to send some of the East Lift Station waste to this system and also the South Lift Station. The second alternative was sending all the waste back to Kill Creek. It would require, like I mentioned before, additional capacity of the lines so the new flow can go all the way to Kill Creek. It will require interceptors to the wastewater treatment plant, and it would require a South Lift Station and force main. And that you can see on the drawing behind, you have the proposed lift station. You have the gravity main going south, and then lift station pumping it all the way through the South Lift Station and all the way to Kill Creek. New Century wastewater treatment. This is the conversation we had with Johnson County. They said they don't have capacity, so basically this alternative was ruled out. Alternative 4, sending the waste all the way to Edgerton. We will have to upgrade the existing facility using level of technology. The current capacity is 0.5 million gallons, so we may have to expand it to maybe 3 million. It will require a new pump station and 5.5 miles of force main. And with the current agreement we have with them, I don't think doing additional investments will be in the interest of the city. Fifth alternative, which is a non-degrading alternative, basically using the waste for wastewater for effluent irrigation. That requires a lot of land, several thousand acres, so you can retain the water and release it once you meet the level set by KDHE. And the other was to recycle the reuse. send the flows to the current Kill Creek wastewater facility. It will require 5 miles of force main. Will require an MBR, which is a membrane bioreactor, so we can meet with the current levels. And it was not feasible from the cost perspective. The next slide, we basically narrowed down to 3 alternatives, 1, 2, and 3. Also, KDHE only required 3, so we provided 5. We went 2 above what they required. So we look at alternative 1, which is putting a new facility south. The cost present, the NPV of capital, or net present value, will be $42,959,000. For the alternative 2, we'll be sending all the waste to Kill Creek, will be $49,743,000. And alternative 3, which is the, I have to go back, the New Century. It will be about $51,254,000. So looking at the numbers, alternative 1 is the most cost-effective alternative. So the next slide is trying to compare the previous master plan that was to send all the flows to Kill Creek. Then we have the master plan 1, which was the cost identified to put a new facility south. And the third column is the alternative of the new plant based on the anti-degradation study. So for the case, for the first case, again, is $32.5 million. Looking at the master plan, alternative was $30.8 million. And looking at the anti-degradation study, we're saying $2.79 million. Now, this is not the 2.5. What I requested from HDR is to get, if we can do the new facility in phases. Start with 1.25, then go to 2.5, then to the ultimate, which will be 5 million. If you will see the cost for the new facility, that's due to the capacity, which went from 750 million gallons to 1.25. Then we'll be using a level of technology to keep the nitrogen and phosphorus levels low, which is 3 milligrams per liter for the nitrogen and 0.5 for the phosphorus. Any questions so far?
And that's because of the fact we've already got a wastewater treatment plant, Big Bull Creek, that's also feeding Hillsdale, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So their approach was, let's use Edgerton first, if not use Kill Creek. But the numbers, if you look as I have shown, the numbers, they don't make sense. So this is an action plan recommendation. One is based on the anti-degradation study, and the recommendation that will be coming forth by KDHE is to begin a preliminary design and construction cost estimates. I'm proposing this in 2020. Then identify an optimal location for the new facility, also in 2020. Acquire necessary easements for gravity main, 2020. Based on the experience we had with Hillsdale, we were talking less than 2 miles of easements. It took us over half a year to get them signed without going into eminent domain. So I'm anticipating this will be a bigger endeavor. And then begin the gravity main and wastewater treatment plant construction in 2021. Any questions? I know there's probably a lot of information that went fairly quick.
Yeah, I've got a question, and I do have a lot of digesting to do, and I appreciate your presentation. So alternative 1, and again, I don't believe any of us really know what the east side of 35 is going to fruit into. I mean, we've got some great annexation going on, plus the Grata project. But would alternative one fit the forthcoming needs as that develops?
You're talking east of
Yes, sir.
Cedar Knives? Yes.
Okay.
That's why we're doing it in modular phases.
Mm-hmm.
So as development ramps up on the east side, we can just scale up
Right, okay.
effluent processing. Because obviously, with wastewater, you don't want unused capacity.
Correct.
The greater amount of effluent, the more efficiently it can be processed. So we want to make sure that we're just one step ahead of where we are.
Yeah, otherwise,
Yeah, that
the,
affirms it, thank you.
the bugs won't work.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna be the bull in the china closet here.
Please.
What are our thoughts on seeing if we wanna partner with another city on another wastewater plant? Obviously, we're not gonna have the same person write the contract who wrote the last one.
Discussions have been very, very basic, opening discussions have been started with, especially if we go with this particular location here that's south of 199th Street. There has been some interest from Spring Hill to potentially go into an equity partnership on the plant, where we would basically split representation based on investment, and they would take they would be able to send a portion of their effluent to this plant.
How does the rest of the governing body feel about that, I guess is my question.
I mean, as long as it's done correctly, absolutely.
Well,
There's no sense not to, I don't think.
Well, we're just, that would be able to basically allow us to be able to leverage that infrastructure
Oh, yeah.
and get more effluent into it, which would allow us to be able to get some economies of scale going, which is important. No, we would not want to go and say, okay, we control the entire plant and we're not gonna let you, partner, have, no say in the
Yeah,
operation of the plant.
we've seen how that works.
Yeah, it doesn't work real well. So, obviously, with an equity partnership comes equity representation as well, so.
Guys, even with alternative one, I mean, capacity wise, like if we did upscale, or I'm sorry, alternative two, if we did upscale Kill Creek, how much more would that even be upgraded? How many more,
If we go back to the master plan, which is, I think, the second slide. On the slide you're seeing right now, we will have to invest about $30 million. Yes, on the infrastructure to send the waste to Kill Creek.
how much, but how large of an expansion would that be, and would that,
No, that's only just for the actual sewer lines,
capacity
additional
lines.
oh, okay.
interceptors.
Okay.
And then you have what they propose in the master plan, 60 million. So you're talking about $47 million.
And we have to put that money into lines regardless, so, we can either do force mains, high-capacity force mains and interceptors, or we can do gravity lines. And we've had that discussion, gravity lines tend to be a lot less expensive if you put in longer lines, because per square foot of marginal distance, you get a much better bang for the buck.
Well, putting in a gravity line in an open field would be a whole lot better than
Yep.
upgrading
Yes.
forced mains all through town.
You're correct, and lift stations and all the other stuff you need in order to make it work.
Since the gravity main is already the better price anyway, it seems like this
Yeah.
shook out for us.
Right.
It's kind of what made it kind of an, I would say, no-brainer alternative. I mean, there's obviously some engineering that has to happen, but you guys have done a real good job of scoping this out.
Any other questions?
I think the only question I had was, how are we standing on bonding capacity to make this work? I know we talked about this in CIP, but what's our standing on that
If we go to the second slide, oops, wrong way. The table, the 17 projects that were included in the rate study. So those funds have been put in the rate study. So that's why we needed an increase in 2025
Certainly
in
so.
order to meet those, in order to implement those projects.
And
So
be-
the money's already,
And because of that, we are actually going based on the higher cost of getting the Kill Creek plant into place. We're gonna be able to actually ratchet that back, correct, in terms of our
I
cost
believe that'll be
outlays?
the case.
So we might be able to save some folks on wastewater.
So the money's already been considered in the rate study.
Looks like it'll probably be a wash. I mean, that 30 million is to 2028. The extra 16 million is not even in that, so it's probably gonna wash. 30 million either way.
Probably,
We'll see.
but it also depends on what happens on the east side of I-35. If things grow faster, we'll probably get a better bang for the buck,
Correct.
so.
And we'll be prepared.
And we'll be ready, we'll be proactive. Opening up that entire east side for development is worth the investment.
It's gonna develop.
Well, and if we can offload the east lift station, that could be good too.
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing too, we can always turn those pumps the other way, so we can actually take effluent that's on the east side,
Pump it back.
you know, and pump it towards the south wastewater treatment plant once it's online.
So Gons, everything at 56 south is downhill, everything 56 north is downhill, is that right?
Uphill, well, downhill, yeah.
Yeah.
The ridge.
So the idea was to split the city in north and south. And we're looking at 56, but maybe we may have to go to 183rd to be the dividing between north and south. And then send all the sewer from 183rd to the new plant. And everything else will go to Kill Creek.
Thank you. All right. Anything else, guys? Gals? All right, thanks a lot, Gons.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Excellent work. All right. Now it's time for public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. I have a couple of items to read into the record that we received, and if you'll indulge me on that, and then I will open up the podium for in-person public comments. This is from Mark and Jane Flores Swick, 18373 Mimosa Court. Dear Mayor Shute and council members, thank you for your generous decision to give relief to Gardner citizens on their electric bill for March. Your kindness is greatly appreciated and speaks of your support for the individual families of our community. Thank you for your care and concern. That was a very nice note. Another one from I hope I'm saying this right, Milosevic, from 617 North Cedar in Gardner. Hello, thank you so much for your kind consideration and generosity in waiving our electricity expenses for March due to the COVID issues. What a beautiful example of community. So, thank you very much for those who wrote in, and just for everybody's information online, you can feel free to send any notes to our city clerk or to myself personally or to any member of staff, and they will get to me and I will read them out for the record at a council meeting. With that being said, if there's anyone in person who wishes to comment on any issues before the council or not before the council, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. We have a 5-minute time clock, and please no profanity or personal attacks. With that being said, the podium is now open. Seeing no one coming forward, I will move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item for the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion Winters, second Gregorczyk, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Consent agenda passes. There is nothing on the planning and zoning consent agenda, so we move on to committee recommendations. Committee recommendation item number 1, consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning of 38.6 acres from the R1 district to the R2 district for Breckenwood Creek, located 0.4 miles north of 175th Street along Kill Creek Road. Larry Powell, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. What we have is an infill development that's occurring basically along the north side of what would be known as St. John's Trace for many people, and then between St. John's Trace and the next subdivision to the east, which would be connecting to Madison Street. So this is Breckenwood is an infill subdivision. It is currently zoned as an R1 and is going to an R2 district, two-family residential. And the reason for this zoning change, it's been in the city for quite some time and underdeveloped. It's a leftover, part of a leftover tract from a previous, which would have been Prairie Brook subdivision. And since the late 08, 09 housing downturn, the property has some difficulties in the fact that it's a rather L-shaped, long, skinny property, has quite a bit of water running through one side of it, through the Kill Creek area, and then also has some bridging that has to be done on Madison Avenue. That would be the next collector street that would go through that to the west of the half-mile line. So based on all those things, the property really did not develop over time. Has been purchased, and the people are willing to put in what we call small single-family or cottage-type housing, and that development really requires a rezoning to R2. There are no planned duplexes for this. This is a planned development, which means that the Planning Commission has received a specific set of guidelines in order to develop this property, and those guidelines all delineate single-family housing. There are no duplexes of any type or triplexes or any other type of multifamily housing that's outlined for this development at this time. Other than that, you've had the report in front of you. If you want to look at the map that concerns at page 108 in your study and your business plan packet would show you the proper map that has shows the outline of the property.
All right, thank you very much, Larry. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 1? Seeing none, questions for Larry? Yes.
Well, first of all, I'm really happy to see this. I think this is a great fit for this area, and then really excited to see St. John's Trace getting connected to the rest of Gardner. Do you know any timeline on Madison connecting, and like when they plan to do that as part of the project?
That was a subject of great conversation, both from the staff's point of view, and we knew the council had a great interest in the completion of Madison and helping the residents of St. John's Trace gain greater access back to the community, which has certainly been noticed with the closing of Santa Fe Street with the current construction that we have on Waverly and Santa Fe. But at this point in time, even though we tried to negotiate that into the first phase, they're doing this basically in 3 phases because of the cash flow requirements required to build that bridge are substantial. They just felt like they could not do that at this point in time. So they do plan on building that, and it will be done as part of the 3rd phase. So that being the case, if they meet their timeline requirements, I would say 18 to 24 months, with a good building season, we should be reaching that point. It may be a little longer based on housing, but that seems to be the time frame they're moving through at this point in time.
Any thoughts like on the city pushing that a little faster, and then they like, what would you do, like a specials, or
Well, staff offered what we could in the way of assistance, and they did very seriously consider moving this into 1st phase. They really did. They gave it a good hard look. But the cash flow projections for them doing that, the bridge and the road projection is basically a little over $650,000, and that's just a very large amount of money to put in just to the road and the bridge, not to mention the development for the rest of the water and everything else. The city did offer some incentives on things that we thought we could pick up, including the use of the excise tax, which was a substantial amount of cash. It's about $300,000, a little over that. But that would require them to plat everything at the same time, and this way they only have to plat in phases. So the cash flow scenario for them was just a difficult one to come up with, and the city being in the current state that we have with looking at our budget and trying to maintain our own budgetary guidelines, we felt that we really couldn't offer much more than what we did, and so both of us went away feeling we'd done our best, but both of us understanding that it's just not going to happen at this point in time.
I've talked to them, and they want to do it right now because they know it only helps their development, but they just strictly based on the numbers, like they have so much outlay up front with like roads and all that stuff that they're just like, we can't risk it and then be tied up with, we've got the bridge in, now we can't finish the rest of the development because they run out of cash, basically is what it amounts to.
So they'll put in the first phase and see how the cash flow comes back
Right.
on the sale.
Yeah, I mean, if they're selling like crazy, if everything's going nuts, then they'll jump on it.
Yeah, they can always advance their timeline. That's not an issue, and the city would be more than happy to work with them at any point in time to do that.
The price point on these particular units, these are narrow lot units, they're, smaller homes. I'm assuming they're like limited maintenance or for more like empty nester housing, those kind of homes.
Well, these are more of the small cottage homes. They are meant to be for either small starter families or for retirement people, or for that matter, anybody can buy them. I mean, there's no limitations on this. This is an open market housing. They're not subsidized in any way, shape, or form. So, but they're basically in the $250 range right now.
Those will sell like crazy.
Yeah.
That price point is very hot right now in this market, even with COVID and everything else. I mean, once we start getting back and recovering from that, they'll move fast, right? Rich?
I've got 6 people right now who are ready to buy.
Would these be any similar to like what's behind Moonlight Plaza, behind just to the west of Moonlight and Madison? You know those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that housing is of a different time frame.
Yeah.
So, no, I would think actually that these are going to be, well, might be a similar size, yes.
Okay. Size and
similar
yard.
size-wise, but they're certainly going to have a much more modern aspect to them, and they would be current. It would look like any current small modern house. They'll be very nicely built. We've seen some design criteria, and they're going to look okay.
And it looks like some of these will have dedicated driveways and some will have shared driveways with the unit next door.
Part of the unique design capacity for this is in order to save space and to use the compact lot design, it did require the sharing of driveways. So you'd have 2 homes in some cases. Not all the homes are this way, about 40% of them. You have 2 homes and you have a driveway between them, and then the driveway separates and goes to the individual homes. And that particular land savings aspect allows them to build slightly larger homes on those lots than they otherwise could. So you're actually getting a little bit bigger house on one of those lots than you would on a single family lot. Not by much, but enough to make a difference for some people.
That's great.
So.
Yeah, I think these will definitely be right in that ballpark where people are gonna wanna, even without Madison coming through, which I'm with Todd on this one. I think we need to really start looking at the possibility of maybe trying to, provide an accelerator or some sort of incentive to get that done after a year or so when there's been some movement of that inventory. But
It's been forever, so I mean, if you
I
gotta
know.
wait 2 years, I mean, it's.
yeah, well, it's been probably 7 years too long for some of the folks over at St. John's Trace. I'm just telling you.
I know.
So, but anyway, we're looking forward to seeing this, and with that being said.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Will these homes have basements?
My understanding is that the majority of them will be slab, but there are some aspects to the terrain that lend itself to having some small walkout basements, so there's going to be a little bit of mix of both. Okay. But the ones that are closer to the wetlands, of course, would not probably have basements because they're more flat ground.
And they'll flood. We don't want basements flooding.
Thank you, Larry.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that, Randy.
It's all right.
Didn't mean to. Anybody else? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 2656.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Winters, that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2656, an ordinance changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Ordinance 2656 passes. Thank you, Larry. I guess you were like, yeah, you've got the entire committee recommendation list here.
I'm busy tonight.
Planning Commission was very busy, and so now you are. Committee recommendation number 2, consider adopting an ordinance approving the rezoning of 100.4 acres from county and PEC 3 district to City of Gardner District C3 for Prairie Trace, located at the southeast corner of 175th Street and Interstate 35.
Okay, and just as a preliminary thought here, the next 3 items are all related. They're all Prairie Trace items, they're all rezoning, and so some of the information, of course, is bleeding over from one to the other, and they're very similar in nature. I would say that if you wanted to look at an overall map, page 182 in your packet would give you the best perspective of the changes of the new zoning. So we'll handle these one at a time, of course, because they're all individual and they require individual votes by the council in order to take effect in the future. Another thing that you need to remember is that these actions are, even after they pass through you, are still going to both the airport commission for review because they're within a mile of the airport, and then to the county council or commission for their review and approval also. And those are anything within a mile of the airport. This is normal, and this is the process, and it's already on the agendas for those other entities. So based on the action you take tonight, they'll move through the normal process and continue on down the road. So the first one, committee recommendation number 2, is a review of the application of Z-20-03, a zoning map and amendments for portions or parcels of 2F231429-3001 and 2F231499-1001, located southwest of the intersection of West 175th Street and South Clare Road, and the staff report dated March 24th, 2020. And the Planning Commission recommends the governing body approves the applications proposed, providing the following conditions are met and actions are taken. Number 1, that the parking, lighting, and other improvements shall not conflict with the airport and aircraft operations. Number 2, that the required FAA documents, including Form 7460, shall be submitted to and approved by the FAA for all aspects of the development. Number 3, affidavits of interest regarding the New Century Airport shall be filed in the chain of title of the subject properties, and appropriate language for airport affidavits shall be included with the final plats. And number 4, the final plats shall be reviewed and approved by the BOCC prior to the filing of the plats. And these are all the normal steps that we go through every time for anything that's within a mile of the airport. So these are not unusual recommendations or requirements for these changes in itself. We are changing the zoning in this property from the county zoning of PRB2, which is Planned Residential Neighborhood Retail Business, which is the large majority of the property as it faces 175th Street, and PEC3, which is Planned Light Industrial Park, which is the west part of the property that's connected to that part that follows the exit ramp from I-35 as you get off and go up to 175th Street. So those are the 2 existing zones, and this part is taking all of that front area and zoning it to city zoning C3 or commercial. So roughly this 100.4 acres is moving from Planned Residential Neighborhood Retail Business, which is a county zone, to C3, city commercial, and a very small corner of the light industrial parks attached to that, and so that is a small piece is also being changed to commercial. So that is the recommendation, and the staff recommends approval of the rezoning application per the information presented in the staff 2020 staff report with conditions of approval to address the county concerns regarding the nearby New Century Airport operations.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Public comment on committee recommendation item number 2. See no one coming forward. Any questions for Larry on the C3 rezoning?
Mayor, just for a point of reference,
Yes.
Mr. Travis is on the phone. If you have any questions directly for him, he can
Thank
answer
you,
those.
appreciate it. Good to really see you, but good to know that you're on the line. Mr. Schramm, appreciate your attendance.
Are you unmuted, Travis?
I'm here, yeah.
Ah,
Thank you.
yes,
Question.
great. So anybody have questions for Larry or the applicant?
Before we do that, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Because this is a rezoning application, if any of you have had any ex parte contacts, meaning contacts about this application outside of this process, it'd be appropriate to disclose those at this time.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start from my left. Mr. Gorsick,
No, sir.
Mr. Melton?
No, sir.
I have had no conversations regarding the rezoning. Nope. All right,
No.
Councilman Baldwin?
No contact, sir.
Okay, so we do not have any ex parte contacts on this zoning. So any questions for Larry or the applicant? Okay, all right, well then I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 2657.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Milton, second Gregorsek, that we accept the recommendation of the planning commission and approve ordinance number 2657, an ordinance changing the zoning classification or districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the municipal code of the city of Gardner, Kansas. City clerk, will you please call the roll? And I believe that on a zoning issue, I am expected to vote, correct? Okay, so please call the roll.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorsek,
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Shute.
I vote yes. Ordinance number 2657 passes 6-0. I like the trend. All right, committee recommendation, item number 3. Consider adopting an ordinance approving a rezoning of 31.9 acres from County PRB2 and PEC3 District to City of Gardner District R3 for a prairie trace located at the southeast corner of West 175th Street and Interstate 35. Larry?
Again, this is the second of the 3 actions concerning rezoning of the different parts of the total 261 acres of this property. This concerns the 31.9 acres, which would exist mostly in the PEC3 area and has a very small corner of the PRB2, the neighborhood retail business, and then mostly of the planned light industrial park. So this is mostly the western acreage that is on the north side, and again, is mostly up against the exit ramp area that exits I-35 onto 175th Street, and would actually back up to what would be the new road that is built internally, which is New Trails Parkway is the future name of that roadway for the center of that property. So this development is a rezoning from PRB2 Planned Residential Neighborhood Retail Business and PEC3 Planned Light Industrial Park to the City of Gardner's R3 Garden Apartment District. So this means that you can build multi-level 12 to 16 unit apartment complexes, okay? And we're looking at approximately, I believe, is it 18 units, Travis, or 20 units?
Per acre?
No, the total number of buildings, I'm sorry.
That's really not, that's.
Yeah, I think it's 18.
Yeah, 18 buildings, 424 units, no
Thank-
max density, 12.5 units an acre.
Thank you. So a total of 400 plus units out there, and those would be future development areas. So the staff recommends actually the 1, 2, 3, and 4 items that are listed are the same as were in the first recommendation for conditions and actions to be taken. So the staff recommends approval of the rezoning application per the information presented in the March 24th, 2020 staff report with conditions of approval to address county concerns regarding nearby New Century Air Center operations.
Okay, thank you very much, Larry. Any public comment, I'm sorry, on committee recommendation item number 3? Seeing none, any questions for Larry or for Travis on this? I did have one question, and that had to do with the proximity of this property to the to the approach path at New Century Air Center, and I know you've already had discussions about this, Travis, is that going to impede in any substantive way your plans for, as the western part of that parcel?
No, we've been working with Sean Finley and the county and their staff trying to identify where that primary flight corridor is. We'll have a buffer that's determined by planning. Obviously, we'll have to be a little bit in excess of that, but we do have some floodplain in that corner as well, and so we can open that area up and make sure that there's no buildings within the primary flight corridor, but it's about 125 feet from the property line.
Okay. So we're talking about a relatively small strip that they're looking for, potentially for protection.
Correct.
Okay, great. Anything else? Okay, it's another zoning item, so there will be 6 votes in the
And
entire
Mr. Mayor,
governing body.
just-
Yes, oh, ex parte again?
Yeah, ex parte again.
Okay.
And yes, you're correct, same voting.
Yes, I'll start on my right this time. Councilwoman Roberts?
No, no contact.
Councilman Baldwin?
No.
Council President?
Nope.
I have had no ex parte.
Nope.
Vice President? Councilwoman Gregorczyk?
No, sir.
Okay, so now we've gotten that out of the way, we'll go on ahead and move forward to a roll call of the governing body.
Need a motion, sir?
Oh, sorry about that. I had a motion. Okay, make a motion.
So
on-
moved.
All right.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Winters, that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2658. An ordinance changing the zoning classification of districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the city of Gardner. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Mayor Shute.
Yes. Ordinance number 2658 passes. Committee recommendation item number 4, consider adopting an ordinance approving rezoning from county RUR, PRB2, and PEC 3 districts to City of Gardner districts RP1, approximately 88.2 acres, and RP2, approximately 48.1 acres, and associated preliminary development plan for Prairie Trace. Larry?
Again, council, this is the third of the 3 rezoning issues for this piece of property, and this approximately 136 acres is to be rezoned R2, which is to be single-family designated. The entire property, the map for that, if you look again on page 182, shows the property that's on the south 2/3 and narrowing as it goes to the west, basically forming a point. That property is all to be single-family residential. There are 2 phases, 2 plats, final plats already being proposed for the Planning Commission meeting this month, which will start those initial phases. One of them is for the estates and one of them is for the market. Those are the names of the 2 subdivisions. There is a lengthy list of exceptions from the Planning Commission recommendations, and rather than read those, I think I would just ask if you have any questions about them. There are 17 deviation requests, which have all been reviewed by the Planning Commission and are listed out for you in approved method. And then the staff recommendation lists those, plus a few additional ones from the county again, so get to the 21 that are on the staff recommendation. The final one on the applications, 21, is the application shall be reviewed and approved by the Johnson County Airport Board and Johnson County Board of County Commissioners prior to the publication of an ordinance by the City of Gardner governing body. So in this case, we would not publish the ordinance. Normally, we publish the ordinance as soon as possible after the passage, but in this case, we would withhold that ordinance until such time as both the Airport Board and the Planning and the County Commission has approved it. And this is not really unusual, but it's not quite the norm for our normal processing. This is something that the county has requested just to make sure that they feel like they have had adequate representation in reviewing this because it is close to their airport. I would tell you that we have been over this with the county planning staff in great detail, both before, during, and after our planning commission meeting, and have met with them several times and with other county administration on this. I think we have everything ironed out. The applicant has met with them numerous times also to answer any questions they have. I think this is probably the most fully vested project I've seen for a subdivision project in quite some time. And if there's not an answer to a question at this point in time, I don't know what it is, but we and the applicant both feel like this is ready to move forward and would appreciate and make a recommendation that it do so at this point in time.
Great. Thanks, Larry. Any public comment on committee recommendation item number 4? Would not expect any. Any questions for Larry on this portion? Again, with the plat, it makes it a little bit more complicated because we're approving not only obviously the zoning, but we also have a preliminary plat that's going to be going to the county commission.
Correct, and that's one reason why you have the extra step on Part 21 on this, is because you actually are approving a preliminary plat plan which outlines all the deviations that have been negotiated between the applicant and the city and the county. So in effect, this document moving forward pretty well nails down what can and can't be done in the housing area. This is only in the housing area of this part of the change in the zoning that we're reviewing right now.
And from the standpoint of phasing, and maybe I can get some confirmation from Travis here. From the standpoint of phasing, these are the first 2 phases. Am I not correct in that, Travis?
Yeah, these are the first 2 phases, and I appreciate you guys looking at this. I know there's a lot of variance requests here, and I think I tried to communicate in the planning commission meeting, and I hope that it came off, that you guys were able to review that. But essentially what we're trying to build here is something that we're building in other cities. And so what we're trying to do is find our way through the code to build a product in the city that's been very successful in other municipalities adjacent to nearby to Gardner. And so that we're not reinventing the wheel here by adding all these variation requests. We're actually just trying to do what we've already been doing. So I appreciate the time that the staff has spent helping us work through this, and the planning commission as well for the recommendation. But yeah, this is the first phase will be the single family. We're working on taking the final plat to the next planning commission meeting next week.
So we're fast tracking this, and I'll tell you from my perspective, and I'm sure that the rest of the governing body will agree with me on this. We're excited to get this underway. So thanks for putting up with us, Travis. I know, as I said, as Larry said, this has been very well vetted. So I'm sure this is just going to sail right through the county.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Steve. And it's a big investment for us as well, and we're excited to get it moving. And we want to make sure we get it right out of the gate.
Absolutely. All right, a couple of things. Do we have any more questions from the governing body on this? Okay, ex parte, correct? All right, we got to look at ex parte communications, and this is going to be for not only the zoning but also the platting, correct? So
correct.
I'm going to start on my left with Councilman Gorsuch.
No.
All right, I have had some contacts on the preliminary platting side of things.
No. You could just
Yes.
disclose whether that was from a proponent or an opponent.
It was from a proponent. It was from the applicant.
Well, then I did too, I guess.
Yeah, we got to think about the
Yeah,
entire development and how it's been shaking out. So yes, you and I both had those.
Well, then I would retract mine as well. Then I've had
Yeah.
some conversations as well.
Okay.
But not specific to anything we've discussed.
Yeah, or
Okay.
zoning.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think so.
All right.
No.
And
No.
Tori? Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and entertain a motion on ordinance number 2659.
So moved.
Second?
Motion Melton, second Gorsuch, that we accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve ordinance number 2659, an ordinance changing the zoning classification of districts of certain lands located in the city of Gardner, Kansas, under the authority granted by Title 17 of the Municipal Code of the City of Gardner and the associated preliminary development plan attached. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaworski,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Shute.
Yes. And we are off and running with the approval of ordinance number 2659. Thank you very much, Travis, for being on the line, and we're looking forward to having a very long partnership on this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
All right, thank you. All right, that's it for committee recommendations. We have no old business. We're moving on to new business item number 1. Consider accepting a voluntary annexation with landowner consent. Larry.
Thank you, Mayor. With this is not an unusual request, but it's a little, it's been a little bit awkward in the length of time that it's taken for this landowner to get to this point. They currently live in a house out by Gardner Lake, and their house is already in the city limits, okay? So they live in the city limits. They purchased from the city about a year ago a piece of property between their house and the lake. Again, this has been a norm. We've done this several times over the last couple of years for people that wish to purchase the property between their current residence and the lake. They then wanted to extend their house onto the property, and they went to the county to do so because that property is in the county. And the county said, no, you got to go to the city, and that means they have to annex. So that's why we're here. Once we annex the property for them, then they would make their recommendation or their request to make their house extension through the city instead of the county. So that's the train that's occurred to get us to this point. So this is a request from the property owner to have this small piece of property that's outlined on page 296, which is part of the land commonly known as 15415 Lake Road 3, and you can see the map of the locations, and it's approximately 0.159 acres of land purchased from the city of Gardner in 2019. So the consent form for annexation, location, and the ordinance is all before you, and it's been properly legally defined, and the red line area that's on the picture of the map shows it as far as its location from between the house and the lake for you, if you have any questions.
Thanks, Larry. Any public comment on new business item number 1? Seeing none, any questions for Larry on this? I'll entertain a motion then on ordinance number 2660.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Melton, second, Winters, that we accept the voluntary consent annexation agreement and consent annexation request 15415 Lake Road 3 and adopt ordinance number 2660, an ordinance annexing lands in the city of Gardner, Kansas. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaworski,
Yes.
Councilmember Melton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Ordinance 2660 passes. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
And thank you for your stamina at the podium tonight. Next item is new business item number 2. Consider the implementation of 2020 electric distribution and line maintenance purchasing program. Gons. Welcome back.
Thank you. Over the, I'll give you a little background. When I got here in 2015, most of the inventory was handled by Excel and a piece of book tracking what was used or not. So there were, during the financial audits, they identify a need to have a better system for inventory management. So in 2018, the city implemented Lucity, which is a computerized maintenance management system that, besides tracking work orders, also tracks inventory. Over the past couple of years, we've been using the inventory management part of Lucity for tracking parts. So right now, if somebody takes, for example, a LED fixture, and he'll record it in the work order. So Lucy will deduct that piece of equipment from the inventory. And then we have a inventory clerk that does the actual physical counts on a weekly basis to make sure that what the computer is saying is actually on the shelves. In the case of electric, most of the items have I will say, a price tag that is more than $10,000. In order to purchase those materials, since it's above my limit, I have to request approval from the city administrator. So last year, the purchasing policy was revised to see if we can have an exception. What I call critical parts are items that we need on hand in order to maintain or extend the life of the assets or infrastructure. So the intent was to come up with a purchasing program on an annual basis, mainly for electric distribution and line maintenance. Since, like I mentioned, some of the items over 10,000 that will require approval from the city administrator. In some cases, it was over his limit, so it will have to go to the UAC and then city council. So we came up with a list for 2020 that identifies items that we need to purchase in 2020 for electric distribution and line maintenance. And if you look at the attachment, I think the first is the electric distribution. If you look to line number 4, it's a primary cable for odd triplex. The cost per foot is $11, but you have to buy it in reels, so that's 1,000 foot. So we're requesting buying 2 reels, so that's $22,000 right there. Then items 5, 6, 7, and 5, 6, and 7 are materials, pad mount transformers that we may need for the new apartments that will start construction this year. Then some items are stock items. If you go to item 11, that's a 750 kVA 3-phase transformer. We have 1 quantity on hand. That transformer is going to the Bellefonte car wash. So we will be short of 1 transformer. So we're requesting, well, that already went to the car wash, so we're short of 1 transformer. Then another example would be item 18, 3-phase fuse cabinet. We have 1 in stock. We're requesting 2 more. One of the existing cabinets is old and needs to be replaced. And then we'll have another one for another development that's coming. So we're requesting 2. As you will see, the total cost is over, it's $28,000. If you add up all the 20 items, you come up with $286,000, of which about 120 will be for new developments, and the balance will be for restocking our warehouse. Then if we go to the line maintenance, a little more straightforward. And for the line maintenance, we're requesting $36,775 to replenish the inventory. Any questions?
I'm gonna open up a floor for public comment on new business item number 2. All right, seeing none, I'm gonna ask if anybody has questions from the dais. I did have one, just a clarification question. These are all paid for through the capital fund for electric. Am I not mistaken on that?
What do you mean,
So-
capital?
The electric
Fund, yes, sir.
Capital
Now,
portion.
with commercial developments, we invoice for the parts and materials and equipment. So they'll pay us, and then with that money, we'll go ahead and buy the equipment.
Okay, but we'll have the equipment on hand, so it'll be a very quick turnaround.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Melton, second Baldwin, that we approve the implementation of 2020 utilities purchasing program for electric distribution and line maintenance. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions? New business item number 2 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gons. All right, so we're down to council updates. Does staff have anything for council? Everybody's either here or online, right? All right, so I'm going to start with Chief Belcher. All right.
From the back hall.
Chief Belcher's in the back. He says there's nothing from police. Okay. City Clerk.
Nothing for me.
City Attorney, who's usually over here, but now he's over there.
Yep, 3 for a loop. Nothing from me tonight, then.
Okay. Anything from Michael Kramer in Public Works?
Actually, I've got his update.
You've got his update? Okay, great.
You want to let everybody know that the patching at Celebration Park started today.
Yeah, press your
They got
button.
interrupted by the rain, but that process is,
Button.
no, mine's live. That process has started. And then he mentioned that the FAA, we're expecting an FAA grant to reimburse for operational costs due to COVID-19.
Oh.
Don't know the amount yet, but that was the notification.
That's great. What's the status of that, of the appeal on the land out by Gardner Airport? Do we have any update on that?
No updates.
Yeah, so I'm handling that. We're in the discovery process. They've appealed the appraiser's award, so there you have an entitlement to a jury trial, which I think is set for, I can't remember, it got pushed back because you can't do any discovery now with COVID. I want to say November, something like that.
Wow, okay. Thank you for that update. Larry Powell, anything from your neck of the woods?
We've recently received several phone calls from people out on St. John's Trace, reference the continued detour signs that are there but not up, just kind of laying around.
Yeah.
They were curious as to the continuation of the road work and whether or not it might be necessary for those to be replaced again. And it's my understanding in a conversation with Public Works today that the signs still are there because of the continuation of work for 175th that would be basically east of Waverly Road. It may be necessary to put those back up again. So just for the public's information, those signs will not be picked up for a while yet because they're still needed for future detour aspects as we continue to work on 175th and the Waverly intersection. Also today and a couple of days ago, our office, don't know why they dialed us up, but also received several phone calls from people that wanted us to express their thanks to the City Council for the action taken in relieving the payment for the March electrical payments. One of them said it made a huge difference for them. Another lady who called me this morning just wanted her to express her thanks for that. She says my bill wasn't that big, but it made a difference to them also. So that's just something they asked us to pass on to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Larry, while you're up, can I ask him a quick question?
Absolutely, please.
Timeline on the entrance by Walgreens to the soon-to-be Price Chopper and shopping mall there. Are they planning to do their parking lot and that entrance all at the same time, or do you know if they're gonna?
The Walgreens parking lot is not part of the project.
Well, I'm sorry, the entrance next to the Walgreens. The road in between Quick Trip.
The road between?
Yeah.
That's, as you can tell, it's been removed. They have to do some underpinning work, some stabilization, soil stabilization work, because the soils are rather, I guess, loose is the best term.
Liquid? Yeah.
Is the best term I can think of right now, for that to move forward. But that is moving forward. That's the last piece between the parking lot for the new building and the existing parking lot, which they've already finished in front of the rest of the shopping center. The other roadway that runs behind Walgreens and QT, which is an actual extension of Washington Street. No, Shawnee, extension of Shawnee, which is a new entrance into that parking lot area, will be refurbished at a later point in time, but it'll be worked on. As to the exact timing, I'm sorry, I'd have to get with Public Works to find that for you, but we're expecting it to be done within the next 20 days or so, the roadway. Now, there's additional work that has to be done on the highway, and then there's the traffic signal lights that ultimately get put in there, and that's in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great, thank you, Larry. Thanks. Move on to Gons Garcia? No, sir. Nothing on your end? How about Jason Bruce of Parks and Rec? And there's actually a question I got regarding the pool. So if you could address that, because obviously we're getting close.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of cutting in and out, but I think that might just be the speaker.
Is that better?
That's better, yes, thank you.
Sorry about that. I was in a Zoom call a week ago Friday with several agencies across the state discussing aquatic centers. A lot of the agencies are waiting on recommendations from CDC, county, state, on what that's going to look like. So several agencies are similar to us. We're just doing basic maintenance, cleanup. We haven't filled the pool yet, haven't started using chemicals yet. Waiting to see what the stay-at-home order will look like. And we have another call with those agencies next week.
Okay, great, thank you for that update. Anything else on your plate that you would like to let the council know?
Other than that, we're also in communication with agencies about what baseball, softball, t-ball is going to look like for this summer. I have a call next week with 5 other towns that we share league play with, and we're going to come up with a plan on what it's going to look like if we start in June or July, what that season will look like. So kind of just planning for different scenarios and getting our ducks lined up when it's time to go.
Okay, thanks for the update. Finance Director Matt Wolf, who's sitting in the dark right now in the atrium.
I'm glad we're saving all that electricity.
Come into the light. Yes.
Finance Department has no updates for tonight.
No updates. Yeoman's work on the part of utility billing to get all those bills reissued. Excellent work. Pass that along to Amy Foster and the billing department. They did a tremendous job.
What is Amy doing now with all her free time?
I'm sorry?
I was asking what Amy's doing with all her free time now. I mean, she
But
hasn't had
fix
to do
municipal
anything
court
for like
dockets is what she's
2
doing.
meetings.
I just want to thank the mayor for bringing that up. Utility billing has been hard at work.
Oh,
working
yeah.
10, 12-hour days, sometimes weekends.
Yep.
To make sure all the budget billing goes out. So once again, thank you to Amy and to her team.
Absolutely. They have really been burning the midnight oil, literally in some cases, and wanted to give them ample recognition and taking calls at the same time. So thanks again. All right, does council have anything for staff? I'm going to start with Councilman Gregorczyk on my far left.
No, sir.
All right, Tori Roberts.
I don't really have anything except for the mayor did an excellent job on the news story about Gardner, so well done.
Oh, don't make us that any bigger.
Hey, you know.
I called him and said the same thing.
No, the whole news story represented Gardner very well, and the mayor took part in that, and you did great, and I think it was good. We didn't do it for the recognition, but it was nice that we got good recognition.
Oh, it's always good
For
to
the
be
city. Right.
on the television station for something other than Councilman fisticuffs or, blowing a development opportunity.
Good job, Mayor.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Councilman Baldwin.
I don't have anything.
All right. Council Vice President Melton.
I'm not going to praise you. So just...
I didn't expect that either.
So real quick, the council president and I need to see about having staff schedule a wastewater meeting with Edgerton. We haven't done that, and it's supposed to be quarterly, and it's probably been a year.
2, I think. Close to 2.
Has it?
2018.
So we need to get on that. We need to get that scheduled. So we need to start getting those on the calendar ahead of time. We might as well just schedule out a year's worth right now.
Yep.
So, because we got to figure out what we're doing over there.
Okay.
So
Anything else?
that was all I got.
All right, Council President.
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay, well, I have to circle back. I missed a critical member of staff. So I'm gonna hand it over to the city administrator and see if he has anything for the group.
And
Anything about our communications with the county on COVID response or
yeah, I'm
updates?
still doing 2 or 3 calls a week with county officials. Everybody is kind of in a holding pattern right now. We're starting to pivot towards what we're going to do to reopen. So staff's going to start those discussions in the morning. It shouldn't be difficult, but we're still in pretty good shape. So things have been going well with everybody doing the remote work, and communication's been good. So I think everybody will be happy with how we come out of this.
Well, we are definitely stronger in our position because we've done some really sound financial management than a lot of municipalities in Johnson County. We have not had any furloughs or layoffs. We've had some seasonal staff affected, but other than that, we've been able to keep all of our folks on payroll, which is huge. And again, I want to thank you and your director's work for keeping that going. Speaking of just getting back into business and getting things open again, I'm going to move on straight to my comments. So I've been having discussions with mayors around Johnson County and with our county commissioner, Mike Brown, and I've been looking at the data. There's a great little console that's on coronavirus, on the coronavirus page for jocogov.org. I encourage anybody who's watching this on YouTube to go to that particular location and look up the Tableau mappings for Johnson County. What you'll find is that, statistically speaking, it looks like both our hospitalizations and our caseloads are beginning to decrease. And earlier than the original projections from the University of Washington and other outside entities have given for Kansas, we're actually on the backside or the downswing of our caseloads. Now, we understand that Johnson County has a stay-at-home order that's expiring on the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. And it's superseded by a state order that's now been extended by our governor to the 3rd of May. Given the fact that our caseloads are going down and the fact that we are seeing some recovery from the standpoint of both hospital stays as well as from critical cases, I am actually looking to start exploring the idea of beginning to open things back up using the 3-phased approach from the White House, starting on the 4th of May. So that is the recommendation that I'm making. I'm looking for some consensus from council to start pursuing that. It doesn't mean we're going to do it, but I'd like to prepare for it. We've got 2 weeks and I want to be able to take advantage of it. So I just wanted to get a quick sense of the council on that, and then we're going to start moving forward with some planning. Obviously, we want to get everything ready to go well before the 4th so that we can start opening things up. It's important for local people, for our local businesses to have some certainty as to when they can expect that Gardner is going to start opening things up. So, thoughts, ideas?
I agree, sounds good.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and authorize the administrator to start working on that plan. I'm going to start working on getting some things lined up from the standpoint of testing and things like that. Try to get those protocols in place. So, thank you, everybody. I appreciate that your thoughts on that. That being said, I'll tell you right now, we need to get out. We need to get open again, and the faster we can, the better. May 4th is reasonable. We've got 2 weeks to prepare.
Here, here.
So, with that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion, Gregorczyk, second, Melton, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? We are adjourned.